Hello and welcome to a Saturday night edition of the Managing Madrid Podcast. Got to get that placement of the mic. Okay, we are live in Madrid at the home of Euan McTear on the couch where many podcasts have been recorded. But we got a third member today, and it's Sam Leveridge. So Sam and I were at the game, and Euan is hosting us.
Mm-hmm. I was sitting right here watching. I've not moved much.
Okay, so Euan had the best seat in the house.
In a way, yes.
Because Sam and I had no replays.
Mm-hmm.
Sam and I had no heat. Sam and I... Wi-Fi was okay tonight.
The Wi-Fi worked.
Yeah. So things are moving up.
Yeah.
I kid you not. I was talking to Jeremy up into the Calderon before the game. And he asked me a prediction.
Okay.
And I said, people don't know. The derby at the Bernabeu was the most overhyped game.
Yeah, it's awful.
It is so... And it's always 1-1. So I said, I'm going to predict 1-1. And not to toot my own horn. I got it wrong because I said Griezmann would score. And Real Madrid would take the lead first. But I got kind of the gist of it. It was not a great game.
Yeah.
The first half especially was dull, to say the least.
Yeah.
But you could see this coming. Like, this is the Madrid derby. It does get hyped up. Whether it's, wherever it's played, if it's a cup fight, it's always hyped up. But the Bernabeu one is always a little bit decaffeinated, is a thing they always say in Spain. Oh, it's a decaffeinated derby, a decaffeinated Clásico, they said a couple of times when there's been a Clásico and someone's already won the league or something like that. You could tell that, you've been here in Madrid most of the week, like Sam, you obviously live here too. You could just tell that nobody was really that fussed about this derby. I think because it's really second against fourth in La Liga. They're probably both going to finish second and fourth in La Liga. They just had a derby 30 days ago in the Cup, which really meant a lot because it's the Cup. They just had that one, so coming into this one, just a lot more diluted. And both teams kind of approached it, especially Real Madrid in the first half, that way, as in, this derby doesn't really matter. And actually, we'll speak about the red card, which was obviously not a red card, changed the game. But actually that was a good thing for the derby because that was Gil Manzano deciding, you know what, I'm bored as hell, nothing's happening here, this is going to be a 0-0, let's throw a spanner in the works. And that at least made the last half hour kind of interesting, and we still got the end result, which was a pretty not too interesting 1-1 draw.
Yeah. Sam, did you see it that way too?
Yeah, I think for both teams they were kind of more scared to lose than wanting to win. I think they kind of played like that, especially that first half. It was like neither team was willing to kind of push and gamble a little bit. I mean, Atleti, kind of watching Nahuel Molina, who usually gets forward a lot and was very kind of conservative, watching Vinicius and staying deep. And so I think that was kind of for Atleti, they knew they probably weren't going to win this one, so they weren't going to take any risks, and a draw is a good result. And for Real Madrid, it was, let's just not lose, and that's okay, and we'll probably be able to grind them down eventually. And in the end, it was just that kind of happy to settle for a draw until that red card, as Euan says, where then it was like the Atleti players were annoyed, the Real Madrid players were thinking we can get something more from this game, and it did kind of spark it to life. Yeah,
the Molina point is a good one. And also, what I also thought about was, I wonder how much of a turning point the Reinildo injury was, because... the thing about Jimenez coming in is that Hermoso goes to left back essentially, and Reinildo's gonna at least give you some kind of overloads or some.
He got forward a couple times early.
He can, he does that in his profile, right? But once it's Hermoso, Jimenez plus Saúl on the left wing, okay, so Atletico's wings are gone, and so what's gonna happen? It's funny, it feels like the center of gravity of the derby at the Bernabeu will just pull everything back despite red card or what happens. It just will end 1-1 somehow. Yeah. It was inevitable, but I'm curious to know what you guys think. I saw a lot of criticism of Real Madrid in this game. I don't think they were that bad. I think there was a natural element of there's 3 huge games this week. This is the least huge of the 3.
Yeah.
The league is... I mean, a lot of people were like, well, league's over now. I'm like, the league was over.
Yeah.
So, that was my opinion. It was over, and now it's even more over. But it was the least, I guess, urgent of the 3 games. Barca's in the Cup next game. And so there was the atmosphere seemed naturally subdued. It wasn't that crazy in the stadium. The fans weren't that crazy. There wasn't many press, as we kind of noted. It didn't have the feeling of a big game. But then the first half was good. What's interesting was that Sam, the Bernabeu was very appreciative of how Real Madrid were playing throughout the game. They were very encouraging, a lot of applause for the way that people like Ceballos and Carvajal, these guys were fighting. Asensio was doing some things in the first half. There was an energy when Vinicius got the ball. But ultimately what happened was that they just didn't convert their chances. So how many shots went like to the moon tonight? There was so many, like from the top of the box, cutbacks that Atletico had just like 8 bodies in the box intercepting the cutbacks. Benzema had one big chance that would probably should have done better. I think that was the Militao cross.
Okay, yeah. He had a couple of half chances too in the first. I mean, this was the thing, the kind of first halves where you see Real Madrid attacking down that side. They play the ball in, cutbacks, cross from Carvajal into Benzema. And so many times, especially last season, he's turning that into a goal. It's not that these are chances he should be putting away. They're half chances. But, you know, all the half chances for Benzema tonight were, you know, Rosette, Valverde, same kind of thing. The shots from distance, even when Tchouaméni, Camavinga, other guys came on. Just not really accurate in the shooting point of view, but like just like you say, it just felt deflated. And I think there are 2 reasons. Like you mentioned, that Atleti came in looking for a draw, even more so after Reinildo goes out. Real Madrid, not that they're looking for a draw, but I think they're losing a bit of they don't have the energy to go for it, because this is, you know, it's not like we're going to decide to rest in this game. It's just our legs tell us we have to. The team sheet told us they had to, and I guess that's you know, when we analyse this, we go back to the team sheet, because I was surprised by the fact that neither Tchouaméni nor Camavinga was in it, and that I think started the whole approach we saw from Real Madrid, which was, Ancelotti explained that afterwards he wanted Kroos there because he thought Atletico wouldn't press him, which was true, and Kroos could control the game. But, you know, control elite is something. Control a 0-0 against Atletico sitting back is, okay, you have control, but you do need to, at some point, get the goal to have something to look after and control. So
No, and comparing it to Tuesday night as well, I mean, like you said, there were a lot of half chances. I think that's a good way of putting it. And Tuesday night, there were a lot of half chances, just they ended up being converted.
Bang, net.
And that was kind of the difference. This game had those half chances, but it's hard to think of a save from Jan Oblak or a save from Thibaut Courtois that was like a wow, what a save.
Yeah, he accumulated a lot, but not any spectacular.
Yeah, and there were those chances that on Tuesday night were going in, and if that happens in this game, then it changes everything. But I haven't seen the XG stats, but I imagine that kind of reflects that as well. That it's not too different to Tuesday night, but Tuesday night was 5 goals, and tonight was just 1.
Well, apart from those Benzema chances in the first half, like Vinicius was doing good things in this game, but like anytime he would like get past a couple and he cut it back, there was a swarm of Atletico players clearing the ball. Like, there was just no room. I could be wrong again because I hadn't looked at it in too much detail, but there was, when Tchouaméni comes on, he does one shot at the top of the box that Oblak has to save. That was the first time I can remember like one of these shots actually gave Oblak something to do. Like, there wasn't much. Decent build-up sequences. In Ancelotti himself, I think the way he worded it was that we didn't have as much intensity as we needed in the first half. And, you know, going back to the starting 11, I definitely think it's surprising that neither Tchouaméni or Camavinga was in it. I will say about Camavinga, he's been playing a lot. Yeah. So it's fine if you want to give him a rest in between the Clásico and the Liverpool game.
It goes back to what you say. This is the game to give him the rest.
Yeah.
You know, so
Tchouaméni is a little bit more surprising because he actually kind of needs some reps. But again, from the logical justification makes sense to me. Atletico did not put pressure on Kroos. I mean, like, even, you know what, I guess frustrating for me as a Real Madrid fan is that I don't think Atletico were particularly good tonight. You noted on Twitter that they looked a little bit lost. And I thought their defensive structure wasn't great. Like, they were in this 4-4-2 mid-block, but they weren't pressing, and there was a lot of space between the lines. So it allowed us to play some, 1-2s or bring the ball up the field like the way Militao did, or some combo plays, and then get a ball into the box. But again, it was that final thing that Real Madrid just lacked tonight. But it's not like this was 2014 Atletico that, you couldn't penetrate.
No, exactly. Like, in defence, they were actually quite solid, and this is how, like, a lot of the nice sequences ended with, like, we were joking about this, Sam and I, before the game, like, okay, what minute is Savic getting sent off in this game for just going into Vinicius and being so slow and so late? But Savic just had, like, one of his best, like, one-on-one defensive games in a long, long time. Every time Vinicius came at him, which he did a lot because Molina was, needing help on that side. Savic is there, and Savic just pinched the ball so many times. He had a really good game in that sense. That doesn't mean Atletico were good. You shouldn't have to rely on Savic winning duels against Vinicius, because if you do that again, you're going to lose out at some point, and eventually in the second half that started to happen. But yeah, Atletico weren't good, and I think Atletico looked a little bit lost because they played such a different... They were a surprise as well. Their team sheet was a surprise to me. I had no idea how it was going to look. And I think Real Madrid were a little bit surprised too, and I think you can kind of break this game into 3 thirds based on Atletico's formation. The first third is what they started with before Reinildo gets injured.
Yep.
They're playing some kind of 4-4-2 that they've got Griezmann as the furthest forward player, that they've not played this way for a long time. They've basically decided to put their best player in the most isolated position. A little bit strange, wasn't working. Then Reinildo has to go off. They have to change it around a little bit. It's more defensive, it's more like wing backs. That actually suits Atletico a bit better for the next half hour. And then you have the final half hour after the red card, which obviously then Real Madrid have an advantage. But the other interesting thing, which I wrote about in the 3 answers 3 questions piece, was 1 minute before the red card, Ancelotti changes his entire midfield.
Yeah.
He subs on Tchouaméni, Camavinga and Modric for taking off 2 of the midfield, Cruz and Ceballos, and moving Fede Valverde into the wing, and Asensio comes off. Basically, he subbed the entire midfield either off or moved them off the pitch.
Yeah.
We never quite got to see what that would have looked like, because the next minute Atletico go down to 10, and that starts the third and final act of the game, which obviously at that point Real Madrid naturally have the numerical advantage. Atletico sit even further, and it's a weird kind of scenario. I'm really curious to know if it would have worked, Ancelotti changing his entire midfield halfway through a derby. That was a big roll of the dice, a bold move, and we won't talk about it much because it suddenly didn't look such a bold move.
Yeah, for Atletico as well. I mean, they changed their midfield with Pablo Barrios. He came off at half time, and then Saul, who kind of ended up moving to a kind of left wing back role, and that kind of midfield battle, which looks so important before the game. And then there wasn't that pivot in the team, and then Saul came into the team for Atleti, which nobody saw coming, and then all those changes, it kind of never really got going. Most of the threat was
each
coming
team had
down
like
to
8 substitutions, like in this game. Like it was just always substitutions, or someone getting sent off, like walking off, injured. Like it just felt like a basketball game, constantly subbing in, out.
Exactly.
Not much flow to it, which goes back to your point of kind of just a bit of a stagnant football game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess in some way, maybe this is an unpopular opinion or a controversial opinion, but to me, Atletico with 11 men and Atletico with 10 men is not that different to me. It's like if they're still going to be just like this airtight defensive thing, they're going to play the same way. They're not going to change much. They just lose one guy in transition, which obviously hurts. We'll talk about the subs in a sec. I think that's an interesting point. I want to say, because you mentioned Griezmann, I thought he was Atletico's best player, and the way he moves and the way he gets into the left half space, he roams around kind of undetected. He gets the ball up the field. He's really good, and I thought he was hurting us with that. He was, to me, like Atletico's only threat. Obviously, they scored from a set piece and Jimenez scored, so that's
which he takes. He takes perfectly.
Sure, he takes. Yeah. But he was really good in this game, and everyone else I felt like, Militao did a really good job of neutralizing Carrasco, for example. They didn't get that much from Carrasco, and there wasn't much else from Atletico to worry about. And again, this goes back to the point, like, yeah, if you're going to play Cruz as a 6, this is a game to do it. You're not going to get hurt in transition that much. Yeah. I guess just for Real Madrid, the unfortunate thing was they just didn't get enough transition opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's a credit to Atletico as well.
And they got even less once Reinildo went off and Atletico went more defensive. And then they got even less once Atletico went down to 10 and went even more defensive. So, yeah, there's 3 different kind of stages of the game, and at no point did it really actually swing that much in Real Madrid's favour, even with getting a numerical advantage. It didn't swing as much as you might think, or like you're saying, like you actually did think at the time. This won't change that much.
Yeah, there were only about 5 minutes where I thought Real Madrid were finding gaps in the Atletico system just after the red card, which was when that Tchouaméni shot from the edge of the box, and Fede Valverde had another one like 2 minutes before, which were very similar. Something could happen here if there's just that gap on the edge of the box where Atleti have literally got 10 men in the box and nobody else on the field. Yeah. And that was where the threat was starting to come from. But then Atleti kind of countered that, stepped up a bit. And
that's what Ancelotti said too, was, the shame for... He felt like he had enough time, that it was all going not to plan, but like they were working towards a victory. And he said the shame was that they scored when they scored. Because you had the same feeling, like it felt like, how long's left? 30 minutes. Like, okay, Real Madrid should score at some point. But Atletico scored to not just, obviously, change the scoreboard, but to like halt that momentum for a bit and put Real Madrid against the ropes for a second. And that's just a kind of punctual part of the game, a free kick that, again, another big turning point in the game that comes just after substitution. Alvaro, who we'll talk about in his goal and how well he's done against Osasuna, and this one. Alvaro's the one that's closest to Jimenez. I don't know if he's supposed to mark him. I think it's Militao, but it's either Alvaro's supposed to mark Jimenez and doesn't, or is Militao and Alvaro gets in the way and sort of sets a screen. This is not his fault because he is not practicing defensive set pieces with Real Madrid. And it's the classic thing, the commentator says it all the time, you don't make a substitution just before a defensive set piece. Not only do they do that, they bring on a striker and take off Nacho. If Nacho is still on the pitch just before Alvaro comes on for that set piece, I don't think Jimenez is scoring that goal.
Interesting.
So another kind of like, all these turning points, like it's quite an easy game to chapterize, if that's a word, and like pin down where the turning points were. And Atletico scored, I think, at right the exact time that they had to score to put Real Madrid on the back foot for a second. And then by the time they rebuilt, Ancelotti said it, we had time to equalise, but at that point not enough time to win.
And also the goal came from nothing. I mean, it was a free kick almost at the halfway line, and then a very good header that Courtois couldn't get anywhere near. I mean, 9 times out of 10 a free kick from there doesn't lead to a goal, and it was just bad luck for Real Madrid. And that time everything came together for Atletico.
It really felt like it literally came out of nowhere. Yeah. Like when it went in, it was like, oh, what? Atletico did
that
something?
Wasn't in the script.
Like it really did. It didn't feel like at no point did I feel like Atletico were going to score. No. So I just like, oh, now. But the ironic thing is, I think Real Madrid played their best football when that happened, and that's just such classic Real Madrid. Oh, this is the urgency now we need. We have an excuse to be urgent. Yeah. It's like it just something clicks in their brain. They score. They have some momentum. Although they had some bad decisions in injury time. Like there was that Vinicius counterattack where he just basically kicks it for a goal kick when Camavinga was running on to run onto it. It's just a really overhit pass.
I guess that's just the exhaustion, the kind of hangover of Tuesday night, which was the same thing of having to go down and then come back. And I guess the injury time of this game, when you're already thinking about Barcelona in a few days' time as well, that's when your decision making slips a little bit and you're not quite on it and as precise as you might usually be.
Yeah. I thought, going back to the subs, I thought Camavinga was one of the bright spots tonight.
No, for sure. Like everyone that came on, I think was good, was useful. It's just hard to analyse most of those because they came on again in that situation where it's already 10 men or where they're behind. But I think every one of the subs improved Real Madrid, which is not to say anything particularly bad about the players they replaced. I think Ceballos had a good game before he went off. Cruz, like we said, he did what he was supposed to do. But yeah, like I think everyone came on. Was good, but you think Camavinga was the best of the subs?
I don't know. Yeah, because I think he really made an impact. Like in that left half space, all of a sudden we had some movement. We had someone who was getting into a zone that Vinicius and Benzema can combine with. He was winning the ball. Like as soon as Real Madrid lost it, like his presence was made known right away. And that's the thing. Like this kind of goes back to this is a debate that we've had on the podcast too. Like Lucas and I were debating about it because Camavinga was awesome against Liverpool as as a 6. And then he was like, he's awesome as a left back, and some people are convinced like he needs to be left back. He needs to be DM. He needs to be. I personally think this is what we saw today. That's his best role is an 8. But he plays so well in every position he plays in. Obviously, there are teams that test him at left back more than others and exploit his weaknesses there. But I liked him in the role today. I thought he brought some good energy off the bench. I think he's just continues to be really good. And he was a good spark plug there in the left half space to me. I thought he was awesome. So
yeah, and I quite like that combination of him with Tchouaméni. I think they kind of work together quite well and almost kind of cover for each other as well. When Tchouaméni looks to kind of bring the ball forward a bit further, then Camavinga does kind of cover him and drop in, and to have that connection, I guess, from their time playing with France and the youth teams, that they kind of have that understanding, even if they haven't had that many minutes together this season. So I feel like that is something that long term going forward could be huge for Real Madrid.
Yeah, for sure. So just so you know, Sam and I haven't seen any replays. So we don't.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Alvaro's goal. I haven't seen.
You basically watched it from like the top of one of the cranes, just like.
I was just basically like a fly, on the wall, just like, oh, there's some football on the field. That's cool. With no replays, and it's funny because I was telling you guys off air, and you probably felt the same way, that we didn't know that there was like controversy on the red card. Because
there's no replays.
We don't have
just saw
replays.
Rudiger rolling around on the floor.
We see all the fans game, and then we see this weird scene where Correa refuses to leave, and then there's like people are getting involved, and
which is all kind of normal for a red card. It's like someone's down, it's off the ball, something must have happened. He's not going off. This is like every red card, so you assume something must have happened. But if you don't have screens, you can't see. The thing is, in the VAR room, I've heard they do have screens, but I don't know. They in the VAR room saw it as much as you guys.
So
did,
so you obviously watched the press conferences because you wrote about Carlo Ancelotti.
I watched Simeone too. Yeah,
where there was a moment where someone asked Carlo Ancelotti if it was fair, and his very short answer, it was fair.
He's the first person I've seen, and I've since the game been watching Marca stream, even Real Madrid TV for a bit. And Real Madrid TV will tell you that.
Of course.
But actually, they were even kind of, like.
If Real Madrid TV are like that, then you know.
And Marca, even all the Real Madrid, Ancelotti was the first sensible-minded person I've seen that said that he thinks it was a red card. So I don't know. I
was surprised he said that because I was expecting him like.
Me too.
I would have expected him, if he didn't want to admit it, he would have said, "I haven't seen a replay."
Yeah, he has a way
like
to get. I don't know. I think he was tired at that point. And,
and also with everybody from Atleti coming out, and I saw Oblak was criticising it, Savic was criticising it, Simeone criticised it. You have everybody else saying the opposite. Somebody for Real Madrid has to be like, "Yeah, it was a red card."
True.
And Ancelotti kind of did that without going into too much detail and just saying yes, move on.
Yeah.
This is just what the Gil Manzano narrative needed. Just something.
I know this was one of my talking points. Was we talked about this all week. Gil Manzano, I don't know why they picked him for this game, because both teams really hate him. Which actually sometimes means he must be doing something right. But when you in the first hour, it was quite a couple of yellow cards for cutting some counter attacks, normal stuff.
6 minutes in, he showed a yellow card to Eder Militao, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, but
that wasn't really necessary. In the 86th minute, you understand. In the 6th minute, maybe.
It wasn't for the severity of the foul, but for cutting out a counter attack, normal things. 2 yellow cards each. Nobody's really angry or happy with him. And then I think he genuinely thought this derby is heading towards the most boring 0-0. I just need to do something. And there we were. And it made it a little bit more interesting.
It was just super weird because, again, we didn't know anything. And then I think the first time I realized that it may be controversial, I think you tweeted something about it. And then I saw the replay. I saw
everybody did.
Yeah.
Everybody tweeted something.
Well, there you go. I mean, I wasn't checking Twitter, but you're one of the few people I follow. That's why. So, but if the one replay that I saw that was pretty ridiculous was that it was from the back angle, and you see Correa. I'm not saying what Correa did was a pure, he's a saintly elbow, obviously.
No, of course.
But it was not a red to me. Rudiger obviously just makes just completely the antics, and that's classic.
And that was what Diego Simeone said, which was he's 1 meter 94 centimeters tall. How is he being knocked over by an elbow like that?
I was telling Sam that in the press conference, I have trouble understanding Simeone Spanish.
Okay.
With Ancelotti, not so much. But even though I have trouble with Ancelotti Spanish, I understand him more because of his body language. He was like, Rudiger, and then he put his hand up here, and then he went
and he was true.
He was talking about height and
quite animated, it's a full 3D press conference. Yeah, that's true.
Cool. Okay, so I'm not looking at my notes. I barely looked there. So what did we miss? I'm gonna rely on you guys.
The goals, Alvaro. We've kind of spoke. I kind of mentioned he gets subbed on just before the Atletico. He kind of accidentally sets a screen to Militao and frees up Jimenez. On the other end, there's just nobody marking Alvaro. Corner comes in. He's there. Perfect header. Glances it into the far corner, and it's he could have scored many different types of goals because Real Madrid had many different types of chances in those minutes. But the fact he's coming in, scoring a set piece, which they haven't done all that much this season, I think that's a big thing, because that's basically, literally a big thing. Ancelotti has said this so many times. He's tall, and I feel a little bit bad because he's sort of, the way Ancelotti talks about Alvaro is as if, like, you know, they just found a tall guy in the street, and that's what Ancelotti's excited about. He's tall, he's strong, he's tall. Yeah, he's also a good footballer. We saw him assist. Well, it was literally 7 days ago. But I think Ancelotti is like, let's take for granted that he's a good footballer coming through the academy. What makes him interesting to me is he's tall, and he said that in the press conference. Benzema's not your giant traditional centre forward, even less so this age as he gets older. Having the tall profile like that, I think Ancelotti's really excited about. And he said he's going to keep playing this season and next season be in the first team. So good for Alvaro. And just one last curiosity is, coming through Castilla, Raul's Castilla. It's been a while since Real Madrid produced a striker from Castilla. Raul, his first goal for Real Madrid against Atletico Madrid. Alvaro's first goal against Atletico Madrid.
Oh, you're getting me excited now.
The Raul narrative is there, even though it's a little bit different. But.
Yeah. No, and I think the other thing as well, when Alvaro came on, I was thinking about the Mallorca game where Real Madrid were 1-0 down and they brought on Mariano, and Mariano was kind of the target man, centre forward, and did nothing basically, and the balls were going into the box and he just wasn't there. Yeah. And that set piece was exactly the difference, that Alvaro was right in the right place, right time, right header, and he's a much younger guy with much less experience than Mariano, but that's the difference, and that will be why Mariano next season might not be in the first team.
That's why Mariano and Hazard have played their last game for Real Madrid. Yeah. It's all Alvaro from here.
It's over. Yeah. There was a part of me that was scared that Mariano might creep in ahead of Alvaro, but thank God. But okay, so I have some thoughts on this. This is a really interesting conversation because for all the criticism that we give Ancelotti for not trusting the young players, Alvaro, he loves Alvaro.
You can tell.
Put into perspective that...
Because he's tall.
So is Mariano. But, put things into perspective. Castilla played today.
Yeah.
And Alvaro was taken away from Castilla.
Yeah.
And we had all this talk about, we need to get Castilla to Segunda. This has been a challenge. And I always said, prioritize the A team, please. It's great to get Castilla to Segunda. Did Castilla win? I saw that Arriba scored. Do you know?
No idea.
But... So that's one thing, that they value him enough that he can help the A team, and they're like, Raul, figure it out today. That's one thing. The second thing is that I think when you can come in as one of your first games at the A team level and score on a set piece against Atletico Madrid.
Yeah.
That's and again, I haven't seen any replays, but that's really impressive to me. This is not an easy team to score a set piece on.
It's an impressive goal. He is kind of free, but it's an impressive goal. Really nice header across the goalkeeper. Oblak has no chance. It's the technique is fine, but I think what you're saying is important because he could have done this at home to Elche 2 weeks ago. It doesn't have the same impact as doing it in a derby to equalise. And it's almost maybe good for him that it finished 1-1. It's and not 2-1, because then the headlines tomorrow would be the photos would be, well, probably it would be Humanzano Korea, but the photos would be imagine Benzema scores a 2-1. It's Benzema in front of Marca as,
unless he scores the 2-1.
For me, taking aside the red card and the other things from the derby, to me the story of this derby is Alvaro scored the equaliser. And we were joking about he got the MVP of the match from La Liga, the kind of official one, which I think they have a rule where
18 minutes.
It's basically what? If you score the last goal of the game, you get it. Last one wins. But
he's got to be top of the league in terms of goals per minute now.
I think I was looking it up earlier. I think it's 51 minutes he's played in La Liga this season, and 1 goal, 1 assist.
Yeah. And one that was almost an assist that didn't count. I mean, when you can look at this and Osasuna last week, but this is the thing. Osasuna last week, everyone who follows Real Madrid, everyone listening to this podcast knows what he did and came on and values the importance of that. What he does here, equalising in a derby, the whole world sees that.
Yeah.
So this is what you're saying, not just the technique was good, he made the most of his opportunity. Sometimes it's just about timing, which you can't control. It's not down to him that they're losing a derby at that time. It's not down to him that he comes on in a derby and not Elche at home. But some great players sort of step up in those moments and start to form a legacy from that kind of thing. So, the Alvaro legacy is already sealed and delivered. Just like Raul,
it's great so far. You wrote about this. What was the youngest player?
Yeah, youngest player this century to score in the derby. It was Gonzalo Higuain, who was 19 in 2007. And now it's Alvaro, who's 18 and 266 days, I think it is.
Raul was 17, right?
When he scored, yeah. But that was like
last century.
Yeah, that was
last millennium. It was that long.
Yeah.
The 90s are like 50 years ago now. It's crazy. Alvaro definitely is a talking point from this game. The other thing is you mentioned that, with the tall, Ancelotti talks about how and he always says like this is a different profile to what we have.
Yeah.
It's a different profile not just because of his physicality. As you said, he can do other things.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is when I think of Alvaro or I look at Alvaro, I don't picture him or visualize him as a traditional 9. He can do things outside the box. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes him really interesting is his profile, his versatility, the fact that he can do a little bit of obviously not the Benzema stuff at the Benzema level, but he can do things outside the box, which is important for the way Ancelotti wants to play and the link up with Vinicius. And the other thing is, he seems to just be like ahead of the curve a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I was mentioning this to you or somebody else. He's like oddly established at this point because he's scoring these goals for Uruguay in the under-20 championship, scoring for Castilla, who looks great. I'll ask you guys this: how much does this ease or change the club's mind in terms of do we need a striker before Endrick comes?
I think it's huge because I think next season is Benzema still your starter. But I think they would have signed a backup because it's clear that they need somebody. And now, if you have Alvaro, I really think that's an interesting thing for the club to see. And we kind of spoke about, you touched on the delicate situation with Castilla. Do you take him away from Raul? Do you take him for the A team? There's sort of two ways I look at this. Now that the league's gone, you could like not play him in La Liga and let him play with Castilla on the weekends, and you just use him for the Copa and the Champions League on the bench, and he can come on and do things. But on the other hand, maybe you start starting him in La Liga games to try and see what you've got. If the league is gone and if Barca win it with a few weeks to spare, a home game against Cadiz in April, an away game at Elche, and mate, these aren't natural fixtures, but you know what I mean. Like maybe you start Alvaro and give Benzema the La Liga weekend off. If you've thrown in the towel a little bit, which Ancelotti will never quite say, but eventually the maths will say otherwise. And maybe you take him away from Castilla, not because the La Liga game is really important, but because Castilla, what's it for? To see what we have with our talents. Well, let's not play, against, someone other's B team. Let's put them against the A team and see if this guy really could be a backup for when Benzema's out for 4 games in the middle of next season. I don't know. They've not thought about it. Ancelotti's not thought about it. It's so soon. He'd scored like 2 hours ago. But this is something that I think could be interesting in the next stretch of the season. Does he play the weekends or the midweeks? I think it's almost more important to play him in those La Liga games that don't actually mean much.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. I think he has to play those La Liga games because really that's going to be the decision this summer. Do we need to sign someone or do we go with Alvaro? So you have to test him at this level, and how are you going to test him at this level if you're not giving him those games? Yeah. I mean, sorry Castilla, but they need to kind of give him that trial period and actually see him, not just in 5 minutes off the bench against Atleti, but let's start him against a team like Cadiz, Elche, and see how he gets on, or if he kind of vanishes, or because it's a very different thing as well to come into a game the last 10-15 minutes against tired legs and so on, when he is that big physical kind of guy, to starting a game against kind of a team that's going to defend very deeply and have the big experienced centre halves that are just going to knock him about and bully him. Yeah. I think that's kind of the test that he's going to have, and save Benzema for the Champions League and the midweek games.
I sign off on this. I agree. I think...
Can they play Mallorca again and see how he does against Mallorca?
Just go back in time and bring on Alvaro instead of Mariano.
Yeah, oh my god, could you imagine? I mean, it wouldn't have made it that much of a dent. I think Real Madrid would have lost the league anyway. But I mean, like, Mariano does not need to be developed. We know who he is. Just let his contract run out so he can leave when, But I, like, whether you want to publicly admit it or not, right now, focus is Champions League and Copa. I would say if you somehow Real Madrid win Champions League Copa, it's a pretty successful season in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But given the fact that we know, even if they know subconsciously or privately that league is over, if you want to get the Liverpool version of Benzema, and I think you need to rest him more. So I think Alvaro is a great opportunity because playing Alvaro is not quite like, I think like the PR of playing Alvaro is not like a defeatist attitude.
No,
if you play Mariano, if you play exactly, if you play Mariano, it's like, oh, I'm throwing in the towel, I'm tanking, I'm going all the way down. But if I play Alvaro, it's a PR success.
You're right. It's easy to sell.
Yeah.
And with Benzema especially, I think last season we saw that Benzema was playing every game at the end of last season. We kind of saw the hangover consequence of that at the start of this season when he wasn't fit. He had a lot of niggly injuries because he was playing the La Liga games to try and win the title and seal it, and then playing the Champions League quarter-final, semi-final in midweek. I think this season we think he can't maintain that level, which is normal. He's 35 years old. He can't do it forever. So save him for those Liverpool games, the Barcelona Copa semi-finals, and give a player like Alvaro that chance to rest Benzema and say, look, this is your shot. You're not going to have a better opportunity than this.
Yeah. I mean, I think Modric and Benzema are kind of in the same phase of their careers now, in the sense that you have to have them on the field in the biggest games of the season. Mm-hmm. And they're going to probably come good. But the in-betweens, I don't think you can get quite that elite version of them every single week. And so they need to have that cushion and rotation in between is the way I see it.
Yeah. But that is also a mental challenge for Real Madrid. If you're dropping Modric and Benzema, if you're the opposition, that's going to be this is Real Madrid without Benzema and Modric. This is a different kind of battle to what we were thinking. I feel like that might be why Benzema started against Atletico in particular, because you can't drop two of your big names against Atletico when there's a lot more in this game for Atletico if they win than for Real Madrid.
Yeah. Especially with Rodrigo out already, and he's one of your main attackers too. That's true, and you have to get Benzema to buy into that idea too. Hey, we can play less, but okay. So, what else do you guys want to talk about? I mean, any thoughts on Asensio?
No,
that is the Asensio.
It was interesting. They were going down the side a lot in the first half, almost until Reinildo got injured, and then stopped. I don't. That was the surprise to me, with the lineup that Asensio started, because I thought Fede would start there, and the midfield would have one of Camavinga, Tchouaméni. So for me, the player in the 11, 10 of them I expected to be there. The one that wasn't was Asensio, and we know in big games he doesn't bully teams as he can do against these kind of small teams that we're saying Alvaro should get chances against. So I didn't expect much, because he kind of doesn't struggle against better class. He does struggle against better class defenders, and that was kind of the same again. He tried, but it just...
Yeah, I feel like he was... I mean, we were talking earlier on about how Real Madrid weren't desperate to win. I felt like there's one player who should have been desperate to stand out, in Marco Asensio, because nobody expected him to start.
And it looked like he wanted to. You guys couldn't see his facial expressions from way up where you were in, the heavens, but, you could see, he was... the body language was good. It was just, the body had left the football behind 5 meters, so he tried.
I mean, I thought he tried. The effort was there. I thought he did some good things in the first half on the right side. Mm-hmm. What I think, and the fans were trying to get his back. I think when the fans started sighing with him, it was a moment where Vinicius does some amazing work in midfield and shows some strength to shield the ball, gets the ball up the field, gets the ball to Asensio in transition. It's a break. Mm-hmm. Asensio cuts in, and he can either shoot it or pass to Benzema, and he just skies it. Yeah. And I think it was But
to be fair to Asensio, I mean, on that left-hand side for Atletico, they had Saul, who was very defensive. They had Carrasco, who was dropping back a lot. They had Reinildo at the start.
There wasn't much space.
I mean, there's a lot of defensive players in a small area that Asensio was trying to operate in and cut inside, and every time he was doing that, he was running into Saul. He was running into those kind of players. So it wasn't an easy task for him, and he kind of faded.
He also found himself in a lot of these situations where he's in a crossing position on his right foot, which is not his ideal thing to do offensively, is to get to the byline cross with his right. And most of those were either not accurate or they were just blocked. But, this goes back to our earlier conversation and this is clear to me that which games Ancelotti is prioritizing. Because Asensio is not going to play against Liverpool or Barca. Yeah. So it's like we give him a bone here. But this is... After that Liverpool game, someone asked on the Patreon call, what do we do without Rodrigo? And my biggest concern about losing Rodrigo, and I didn't know at the time what the diagnosis was, it was right after the game, is like, he's such an important third contributor offensively. And beyond that, Asensio was great against Osasuna, Elche, Mallorca, whoever. These games, it's kind of hard for him to find space because he's not a line-breaking dribbler like Rodrigo is. And so that's a challenge that comes into play. And so Rodrigo's going to miss the next Clásico, right?
The first leg of the cup, yeah.
Will we be back to the next game after that?
Next Clásico or next game?
No, next game.
Next game, Betis at the next weekend? Pretty doubtful.
10-day,
yeah.
So, yeah.
Like, maybe, but again, Betis away is actually...
That's a tough game.
It's not as important for the reasons we've said. The league's over, it's not Clásico, it's not a derby, but of the league games that remain, that's one of the tougher ones. So, I don't know, I don't think he'll be 100% for that.
Yeah, it was interesting, Ancelotti in his press conference when he was asked kind of, is this goodbye to the league? And he said, no, it's just more complicated than it already was. And it's kind of that more complicated than it already was is that recognition of, it was already gone before now. Yeah. Not that I can say that it was already complicated.
Exactly. He can say it's over, but like by not being like as...
He's literally not allowed to say it's over.
By not being as clear cut as he was with the red card question, like by... saying the right thing, the club line, but a little bit more vague, that kind of actually, you can read into that he knows.
You remember when Schuster, he said the league was over? He said we lost, we were going to lose the Clásico this weekend or something. Yeah. I think we had so many injuries.
You can't do that.
It's a death sentence.
When Solari said, like, a draw would be a good result.
Oh, yeah, I remember
that, being Real Madrid manager is basically being a politician.
Yeah.
And sometimes you pick a football lineup.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be so funny and frustrating if the next couple of games Barca drop points and Real Madrid drop points against Betis and Atletico? Like this, it would be so classic.
It's possible.
Yeah. I mean, Almeria away is not, they have like the second, third best home record. Imagine Real Madrid win the derby today, a bit of pressure, but no, it's done.
I think it is. I wanted to talk about we'll save this for the end.
Okay.
The experience of the Bernabeu.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this. Because just to make it clear, this was Kiyan's first time since the new press area was opened. And I asked you for your thoughts. You said, I'm going to save it for the pod so that I can react live.
But I'm enjoying this because I've heard you inside of it. I've heard Kiyan's side of it. I'm like, just waiting for... Because
I told you asked me when I was on the first pod after the World Cup when it had opened again. How is it? My takeaway was worse in pretty much every way. And you couldn't believe that you had to buy a coffee now from a vending machine to fund Florentino's, renovations. But what did you make?
Well, you basically said that the purpose of the renovations is to basically make the press unhappy.
To get journalists to put 50 cents into a vending machine, and little by little they will afford a new contract for everybody.
Okay, I'll start with the one good thing.
Okay.
There's more space in like before when you had to get to your seat you had to climb over people. The tables were narrower, so there's more girth to the tables and there's more leg room, and the tiers are higher than I think they used to be, so when people stand up they don't really block your view anymore. That's the good thing. The things that I won't call them bad, not to be critical, the things I do not understand, especially coming from Anfield where there's chefs cutting roast beef, there's a buffet. At halftime they replenish it, they bring new menu items. People just the press just basically go to the press room and eat instead of watch the game. It's crazy.
The English press rooms are a different level in terms of the food. They're all about the food, I think.
So before in the old Real Madrid press area, you could at least just get a cup of coffee for free. Yeah. Now it's a vending machine, and there's two food items. You saw it, right? There's this. This is I asked the security, ¿Dónde está la sala de prensa? And she's confused. She's I was like, yo necesito café. And she's like, "Oh, cafe," and she took me to the press room. It's just like this hole in the wall of the hallway. It has 2 vending machines and a counter where there's bottles of water. Yeah. I was like, all right, cool. You know what? At least the coffee was like Florentino discount. It was only 66 cents.
Yeah. But the worst thing is not the price. It's that it's vending machine coffee, which you're getting it from a vending machine, which is only used like every 2 weeks. And, so
you don't want to be the first guy there.
You've got to be a brave person to take the first coffee after 2 weeks of no matches and put in and go, you know what? I'm going to get a cappuccino. And as you hear the machine fire up again after 2 weeks of sitting in a dusty stadium. That, I've not tried it. I don't think I'll try it. Maybe I'll try it.
I tried. I had 2 cups.
Was it good? Yeah, of course not.
60-cent coffee.
Basically kind of like an espresso, basically, is what it is. But anyways, okay, you know what? It's cold. Coffee would be nice. So I paid for the coffee, 66 cents. Again, it's not the principle. I would pay $5 or 60 cents. It doesn't matter. It's just a principle. Anyways, bought the coffee, came back. Obviously, because it was so cold, the coffee was like iced coffee basically by the time I sat down. I sat with Nils today. At halftime, we were both called. I was like, hey, you want a coffee? He's like, sure. I was like, all right, I'll get what do you want? You want cappuccino? I was like, sure. I go at halftime to the coffee machine, and the lineup, was like trying to get into a nightclub. And and you can see the game on TV.
I don't know what nightclubs you go to, but Florentino's Coffee Hangout is, yeah.
I don't go to nightclubs. I don't know. So anyway,
7:00 on a Saturday night.
So basically, you can see the game on TV. Like if you're inside, just
they have the screens there inside.
So I was watching it, and it was like the players are coming out of the tunnel. I'm halfway through the line. Screw it. Yeah. I went back and I told Nils. It's like the situation is this. Sorry, it's like it's all good. But right after, and I actually missed the red card. I didn't tell you this. Right after Real Madrid made their triple sub, I was like, all right, I'm going to tweet what the triple sub is, and I'm going to run and get a coffee. There's no lineup. So I went into the coffee machine. There was no one there. I was like, great. It said out of service.
No.
And while my world crumbled because it was out of service, I see on the screen Correa red card. It's like, no! I ran back to my seat.
You missed the most exciting moment of the game.
And the thing is, it's funny. This is the funniest part. Nils doesn't have replays. He doesn't know. I was like, what happened? He's like, oh, Correa, violent assault on Rudiger. He doesn't know. And then
he's protecting his German Real Madrid players,
exactly.
He came for this.
And then I was like, towards the end of the second half, I was like, hey, Nils, this red card is actually pretty controversial, apparently. He's like, well, I don't know if it's controversial, but either way, you can't elbow someone. Like, I'm sure you've seen the replay by now, but
and we'll still be saying the same thing.
Yeah. So it happened. It's all good. But the press, it's a never-ending experience. So. But the Wi-Fi was good tonight.
But there was one thing which blew my mind, which was the kind of like glass wall where there's a really nice view over Madrid. The sun was setting over there. Yeah. Wow, this is amazing. I'm like, wait. They're just going to put the shell around this.
Yeah, it's a temporary.
This is going to be disappearing in 2 weeks, but it was a nice view.
The shell is coming together though, because my perspective is that this is my first time at the Bernabeu since November, I think it was. I went to that Rayo game, which is in Vallecas, and that was the World Cup after that, and I haven't come back. So it's been a long time, so it looks a lot different.
Yeah, they did a lot during the World Cup.
Yeah. The shell is coming. It's starting to look like the models you saw from a few years ago.
And the roof too, not from actually being at the Bernabeu, but when you watch a game on TV and the drone footage, you can see that the roof is starting to look like it might work.
Does the roof mean that it'll be indoor or only if it rains?
Can be.
So that could potentially be climate controlled. That's great news.
It should never be cold again once it properly.
Never be cold or hot.
That's the other thing with the new press area was that today when it was raining, the roof covered the back 3 rows, but the front row was not covered.
At one point, the sun was in my eyes, plus it was snowing. It was sun and snow, and I was like, what's going on? This is... But during Amancio's tribute...
It rained.
It was...
only then, kind of.
Rained and it actually snowed a little bit. And it was really cinematic because I actually posted on my Instagram story because it was so cinematic. Because the snow was coming down and the sun was setting and they had this beautiful music and there was this picture there and everyone was quiet. It was actually a really nice experience. It was a nice tribute. And then everyone wore the 7 and then they had the picture with the trophies. So I think it was a cool moment.
No, they do that stuff good, like the tributes and stuff. No, that was a sad one. Like he was like going in. Remember, just a few weeks ago, with Benzema into the centre circle, which like I remember it because like it was like like Benzema walks him into the centre circle. It took forever because he was like really old at this point. Yeah, and Benzema's walking him all the way back. The whole thing takes like 4 minutes. That game, can't remember which game it was. Ended up kicking off like 8 minutes late and stuff. And then just a couple of months later he's left us, so that was a sad one.
The thing with Amancio too, just to mention, is that every year we just get farther removed from the dynasty of the 50s. I mean, Amancio wasn't quite there. Like
that's how time works.
He was a little bit after that. So, but just these connections, and I actually wonder, just a thought that crossed my mind, I wonder who they will appoint as the next honorary member. Who was the guy? Amancio was one of the ones who transitioned. Like he was one of the transition pillars from Di Stefano's era to the Yaya era. He was kind of took the mantle from Di Stefano. And
he won 9 league titles in 12 years or something like that, was it? I mean, domination complete.
Yeah, it's really cool because I remember we did a historical pod. I think it was a game in the 60s European Cup against Manchester United. And we were doing some research for the podcast, and there was an article in The Guardian right before that game in the 60s. And the whole thing was about Amancio. He's like the heir to Di Stefano, the next superstar. And it was really cool, like, just to read that. Like, wow, this guy was and he was really good. He was a great right winger. Like, it's really cool to just watch his games. But it's just kind of sad that we're further removed now from that.
The good thing though is that as that goes on and the legends like this, the honorary presidents like this become from closer and closer times to ours, is you do have more footage of these players than you do the older ones. So even Amancio, you there's highlights. You can see a bit more than you can of like just 5 years before him kind of thing, where there's very little like footage around.
It's a weird phenomenon because even like the kids these days know more about Amancio now than adults did in the 80s.
Right. Okay,
maybe not 80s. No, 20 years ago. Because like now it's really cool. Like you go on Instagram, like my algorithm is just like classic football and classic basketball. Like everyone is just watching Michael Jordan clips, Muhammad Ali clips, like and like, oh, these guys were kind of cool. Like they were good. And so that's like one of the benefits of social media. One of the things I enjoy is that the Real Madrid account puts a lot of historical stuff on, like a lot of historical posts. It's cool to see. All right. Well, I'm happy to end it here.
Let's wrap it.
Yeah. Sorry to all the listeners if we missed anything. Hope this worked out. We'll be back probably Tuesday. We're doing a podcast, and the Classico post-game podcast will be live on Zoom only for patrons. So make sure you're a patron, patreon.com/Managing Madrid to get access to that one. That's our next game, right? That's Thursday.
5 days away.
5 days away. Little break. I have a whole day in Madrid tomorrow. I'm very excited. I don't know. I'm just gonna relax.
Sleep.
Be nice. Relax and sleep. Yep. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Euan, for hosting.
No problem.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Sam. It was a pleasure. Thanks for being here. Take care, guys. Thanks for listening, everyone. And before we send you along on your way and wrap it up here, we wanted to give a quick shout out to our patrons over on patreon.com/Managing Madrid. The ever-growing Real Madrid family that is being built there is incredible, and we're really thankful to be on this journey with you guys. So shout out to all of our patrons who get a ton of bonus content. If you want to get in on the action, go to patreon.com/Managing Madrid. And a specific shout out to these $10 plus patrons, because if you pledge $10 or more, not only do you get guaranteed responses to your questions, but you also get a specific shout out on the podcast. So shout out to these $10 patrons as follows: Brandon Alvarez, Willie Reed, Will Sousa, Way Pairing, Tobias Arroyo Botcher, Taleb Salhab, Tahmid Kalam, Sujai Wani, Sumanchu Singh, Sheikh Hatiri, Shamil, Shabazz Sharapov, Sergio Arispe, Santos Solorzano, Samuli Justin, Sam Razi, Said Mahad, Sai Mohan, Sasi Kumar, Rodrigo Balmaceda, Rishi D, Phoenix, Peter Powell, Paulo Fierro, Patrick Odayafadi, Nico Laxo, Oscar Barrera, Mowgli, MJ Diego, Marin Myrtle, Michael Zinberg, Nicholas Moeller, Matthew Atkins, Martin Ridman, Magnus Lext, Logan Stahl, Leon Stavronakis, Kunal Tilakar, Crystal Glass, Kevin Rivera, Jose Cruz, John Fernandez, Jason Fitz, Ian Marley, Graham Gerard, Gary Kohut, Frederick Rantakiro, Frederick Sundros, Faisal Hamdan, S.A. Davisito, Eloy Enriquez, Edward Sossman, Daniel Williams, Con P, Christian Toft, Christian Acosta, Charles Williams, Brendan Powers, Brandon Stevens, Ashik Bashar, Arnab Mukherjee, Arman Gashi, Armando L, Anirudh Singh, Ananya Kumar, Azaz Hussain, Adrian Rios, Adar Zalukovic, Adam Dorsey, Bella Chow, Varun, Ramtin Maghrur, Fabian Moreno, and Daniel Smith. You guys are legends. Thank you so much. Love you all, and Hala Madrid.